This podcast contains explicit content and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Don't say we didn't warn you. Hey knockers, it's Hannah.
And I'm Madison.
And you are listening to Who's Knocking?
A true crime podcast.
That's right. And today we are back with part 2 of our coverage of the Lululemon murder. So, yeah.
The gruesome, horrific,
just like
crime.
Shocking, unexplainable kind of maybe crime. Yeah. So, shall we get into it?
Yes, we shall.
I'm
curious.
Yeah. I know. Understanding Brittany would be very interesting. So in our last episode, we introduced the Lululemon murderer, Brittany Norwood, and her victim, Jaina Murray, who were both employees at the store, the Lululemon store in Bethesda, Maryland. My dog is now shaking off. So Brittany had a history of theft as well as a restraining order from her ex-boyfriend. But nothing in her past would necessarily have indicated how brutally and violently she murdered Jaina.
Yeah.
Then, after murdering her coworker, Brittany decided to pretend to be a victim of the crime herself. And so she staged a crime scene that made it look like both her murdered coworker and herself were victims of a rape and assault by two mysterious men that had broken in. So they were discovered in the morning. Police arrived and Brittany was taken to the hospital, being rescued, quote unquote, from the scene of the crime. In the meantime, Jaina's body was taken to Baltimore to be examined by a forensic pathologist and to have her autopsy done. The forensic pathologist had never seen such a violently assaulted body before, which I would be shocked if she had.
Yeah, I can't think of
much the most violently assaulted body. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of a more violently assaulted body. That's, I guess, the way to put it.
I don't think so. So here's what the autopsy said.
Okay.
Jaina had suffered a total of at least 331 separately identifiable wounds. And it was very hard. Yeah. It was very hard to identify the wounds because they were overlapping each other.
Yeah.
So that was a conservative estimate.
Yeah. That's how do you even figure out because it must have been some holes that were
right.
That's
and all the different types of weapons. So she had 232 blunt force injuries and 99 sharp force injuries.
Wow.
So
she hit her 243 times and basically stabbed her essentially
100 times.
That's fucked.
What the fuck? And so more than 100 of the wounds were on her head, 39 on her face, which was carved up like a jack-o'-lantern. That's what the book said.
Oh my God.
I cannot imagine what she looked like at that point. I'm sure she was basically unrecognizable. And clumps of her hair had been ripped out too. I remember reading that.
That's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable how violent that is when you really think about it.
Yeah.
And that is
and how it must have continued. You don't just do that and you're done. That
so
goes
long.
on. Yeah, apparently they had tried to recreate it and one person said it took within the context of the forensics unit. I think they had said it must take somewhere between 8 and 16 minutes if you're really, really going for it. And apparently the Apple Store employees next door, check our last episode for details on that. But apparently they had heard something from 10:10 p.m. to 10:19 p.m. But it's possible that her attack continued past that. That was just when things went pretty silent. So
when they just stopped listening, that's insane.
When they just fucked right off and decided not to do anything. But so 37 wounds were on the back of Jaina's head, and that included a deep puncture to the lower right of her skull And that stab wound had directly punctured the cerebellum of her brain.
Yeah.
And that was the wound that was determined to have killed her. So Jaina had fought very valiantly to save her life. And 105 of her injuries were identified as defensive wounds. So she was really fighting back. Interestingly, it doesn't seem like Brittany had a lot of wounds on her. So I don't know if it was just like,
well, she seemed like she was stronger. She, you know,
she had the weapons. So
she had the weapons, and she had the element of surprise. Like,
she had the like shocking amount of anger to carry this out.
Yeah, and like this girl obviously clearly, like, she's clearly suspicious of her as from stealing, but she's like, clearly she's
not threatened by her. Yeah,
she had no suspicion that like anything physical would happen to her, because otherwise she would not have gone back to the store. There's no way.
Yeah, I agree. So it was determined, this part is so like sad and just fucked up. It was determined that it was the last of the 331 blows that killed her, the knife thrust to her brain, because of like how the blood was flowing, they could tell. So she had been alive during the entire violent assault up until that point.
That is just horrific.
Yeah. Like, I believe Brittany like beat her. She was beating the shit out of her and like just horrendously attacking her. Jaina had tried to escape. She had gone into like a couple different areas, and then Brittany trapped her in the corner. And I believe she beat her. Jaina eventually fell to her knees and then eventually fell. And that's when she was lying down. I think that
I was Brittany, going to like, say
killed her.
When you said that it was that, I was like, hopefully that was one of the first.
I know, but that I think there's like, it's interesting too, because it's like, it's not like she killed her and then like, I think there's something different there. Like she wasn't trying to just kill Jaina. Yeah, she was hurting her. Like she wanted to hurt her. Yeah, exactly. Like the motive, I think it would be different if she was like, let me give you a fatal blow and then, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if she like, it's so interesting. I wonder if she like meant to kill her, or like then it just kind of like got out of hand and whatever.
I don't know.
And like, you know,
I mean, she hit her from the back of the head with the merchandise rod, and then at that point it's like, what's your intention there? Like I don't know. So I
feel like some people, it's like maybe she said something to her and then she's like, fuck you, but it's like, it sounds like if she's got a weapon in her hand, like it's you picking up the weapon that is like the where your like intention,
like the moment. Yeah, but she fucking picked up a whole bunch of weapons.
Yeah, because like and that's my question too. Like maybe you'll get to it, but like, did she like have all of these ready to go, or was she?
It was all everything found in the store. It was all items from the store.
But like, as she was beating her, was she like picking up like, oh, this is randomly here, and this, or did she like have?
I think so. I don't think it was all gathered. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff was in the back room already, if not all of it. So the investigation started with the police seeking the men who had apparently invaded the Lululemon store. They didn't have that much to go on, except for Brittany's description of the two men wearing all black. And initially, they actually did have a suspect that could have fit the bill. So there's this gentleman that was known for being a creep around who they thought could have potentially done it. And another store in the area had security camera footage of two men wearing black that were walking around the area, which I have like a little screenshot of that we can post.
What a coincidence.
And yeah. But obviously like Brittany's story was a total lie. So none of this came to anything, but they were investigating, like, have you seen these two men walking by? And then this other gentleman who was a potential suspect. So Brittany had been questioned initially, when she was first rescued from the crime scene. And she gave this very dramatic performance, painting herself as a victim with explicit details of what had happened to her. So because the police are like, you know, continue on this investigation, they decided to question Brittany again and did so at her apartment. They asked her to recount the details of the attack again. And once again, Brittany cried and shook as she explained the blow by blow details of her quote unquote rape and attack. She was very convincing still, but one thing was weird. It was about the men's sneakers that had left the bloody footprints in the store. Brittany identified that the Reebok sneakers, which had been used, if you'll recall, she had dunked them in Jaina's blood and tracked them around the store to make it look like a man was pursuing them around the store. So the forensic team had looked at the sneakers and they had noticed that there was blood on the tops, but not on the soles, because Brittany had washed the bottoms of them, but not the fucking tops of them. And then they matched them to the shoe prints on the floor. So basically the police or the forensics team realized like these footprints or these shoe prints came from shoes that were inside the store. How the fuck does that add up?
And
if a man came in and they're still, and they've been washed and they're still in the store. So if a man came in with these shoes and tracked blood around, why were the shoes always in the store? They had never been outside.
Yeah, makes no sense.
And they were still in the store. Just does not fucking add up.
Too many details.
It just doesn't add up. So they asked Brittany about them, and Brittany had said, well, yeah, there's some shoes that we keep in the store. Just a bunch of men's shoes. We keep them in the store because we for when our male clients try things on, we have those shoes there if they want to like put them on. So the police were kind of like, okay, well, thanks for the info, Brittany. We'll see you later. And as they left, they just started to feel a little bit suspicious about Brittany's story.
Good.
Yeah. They continued to analyze the case. And this was just like right after. This was a few days after. It wasn't like they were investigating for months and months and months. Like this was right after.
Okay.
So as they started analyzing the case in the days after Jaina's murder, they were now starting to think that Brittany's story had some holes in it. And it didn't take long for them to suspect that she actually was the killer. So
Good.
Competent police department over here. So aside from the thing about the shoes, Brittany had said that the men came in without any weapons and only used weapons from inside the store. And the police couldn't quite fathom why two invaders would enter a store without any weapons on hand. So that didn't really make sense to them.
Unless they don't think anyone's there.
But well, they're kind of like, why didn't they bring a gun? If they're coming to rob and like potentially attack somebody in the store, why wouldn't they bring anything? I don't know. That was one thing, but there was a bunch of other stuff.
Right.
Here are some of the other things. So they felt like Brittany's story was a little too dramatic and like a little too explicit. Especially like everything, obviously, like with the like racially motivated rape that she was talking about. It was just like very like dramatic, I guess you could say. Not to say that that doesn't happen, but so of course the discrepancy between Brittany's injuries and Jaina's injuries didn't make sense. Brittany mostly had these light razor cuts. Yeah, Brittany had these little cuts from razors across her body and one deep gash on her forehead, and obviously Jaina was violently mutilated, so that didn't quite line up. And then Brittany's cuts on her clothes were like very deliberately made and they didn't quite line up with all of her injuries. So that was kind of weird. Mm-hmm. The Apple Store employees, shout out, most like shitty civilians ever. They had only heard female voices coming from the Lululemon store. So that was something. So Brittany had claimed to have been raped, and she had been claimed to have been raped by a clothing hanger with a serrated edge, which would have been obviously very painful and damaging. But the rape nurse at the hospital had found that she didn't have any damage at all to her genitals, which...
Yeah, why would she say it was like it's like that's like a
violent, like
stupid detail that you should not have added.
I think it's her just trying to make herself seem like a victim, honestly.
Yeah, but
and
it's
not to say that she's never been a victim in her life, and maybe like that was like built up in her life, but no.
But why specifically say that you something serrated raped you when there's no evidence of that?
Right.
Just don't. So it was a regular penis.
I know, and they said like in the book that they conceded that in some cases the rape nurses don't always detect something. So,
for sure, because it can just look like you just like had regular sex or whatever.
Right.
But that's why you just don't say there's a serrated hanger.
Right. And the other thing, the police had questioned her and they said, hey, Brittany, like, have you had any sex in the past week? because if there's like semen found inside like your body, if you have had sex with somebody else, that might still be there. So we just need to know to clear it up. And she said that she didn't. She said she hadn't had sex for like a month, but they did find some traces of semen within her. So they were like, you're lying about that. Why would you lie about that?
Yeah, because if you should just say yes, because then it makes it,
yeah.
Then the evidence isn't.
It just doesn't line up.
Whatever, conclusive.
But they knew that she was lying about that too. And then finally, and probably most incriminating aside from the shoes, was that Jaina's car had been discovered still parked in a parking lot 3 blocks away. And in it, police had found blood, mostly Brittany's DNA with a little bit of Jaina's DNA, but mostly Brittany's DNA. And a black Lululemon hat had been left in the car, which was stained with only Brittany's blood on the forehead, which was where she had a big gash in her face. So they're like, and they found this after they talked to her for a second time. So they're basically just like, why?
She should have left the car, because leaving the car just makes it look like they were surprise attacked. And like, if somebody comes in the middle of the night and finds the car, they're going to give it a ticket. That's it.
Yeah. So maybe she thought somebody would come into the store and discover her. I really don't know.
Wouldn't that be better? Like, didn't she want it to get discovered?
Going,
it would have been the difference between having to lay there all night.
Going into the car and moving it
that was
very
so
confusing.
Dumb.
Yeah. It's like Jodi Arias leaving the camera with photos on it at the scene of the crime. Like, why did you do that?
Reminds me so much of Jodi Arias and Casey Anthony.
She's a stalker too. I mean, compulsive liar, whatever.
Yeah. And Jodi Arias like is not the type of person that you would suspect like would be a brutal, violent killer who like photographed her violence. And like, I think that's a lot of, I wonder if that's like more of a thing too with women, because women tend to like internalize like their emotions more, like their, violent tendencies more than men do. Men are like very much more outwardly aggressive.
It's more women accepted for men to be violent in our culture, I would say.
And I think women like for example, when women have like abuse, like alcohol abuse problems or like whatever, they have like any sort of mental health issue, like they're more likely to harm themselves or like keep it in than men are more likely to like be aggressive and like do things to other people. And so I feel like sometimes with women, maybe like it can go undetected for longer. They're like hiding their aggression and then it comes out.
Yeah.
And like that's where you see somebody like Casey Anthony or Jodi Arias or this freaking girl, for example.
It seems out of nowhere, but obviously like it's not like Brittany's having an awesome like internal mental health, No. Obviously she's not doing well, but she's just not showing it. You're just not
seeing the like the build-up pattern of aggression that maybe is more common in men. And that
we know of. Like, who knows? Maybe she was like, I don't know. So
it's true, especially too, if she was involved in like sex work and stuff, like who knows what was going on between people. Like,
that's true.
It's those type of situations where like, people are a lot less likely to say like, oh, this woman abused me while I was paying her for sex.
Right.
Who knows? Just a theory.
So the detectives called Brittany in to give a third interview.
Go Brittany.
Yeah, Brittany, things aren't adding up. So when they asked her about Jaina's car, she initially denied ever being in it, which they knew was a lie, obviously.
You always make up that you were in there for some reason.
Your DNA's in there. Like your hat's in there, girl.
As soon as Brittany say I was never there, then
she said, we got you. I was never there. So then Brittany told her story for a third time, complete with crying, complete with shaking, complete with barely being able to talk about the horror of what had happened, keeping every single detail in the exact same order. So I think that's interesting.
Like she had all perfect.
But she's such a practiced compulsive liar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because people who are like that, they'll deliberately craft their lie and then bring it up later to be like, see, it's consistent.
Yeah, a little bit too consistent.
Right? Yeah. The police had to let her go. I think they just didn't have anything really concrete at that point on her. But it wasn't long before she actually volunteered to come back in, saying she had to talk to them about something. So Brittany showed up with two of her siblings, Chris and Melissa, and like I said, asked to speak to the police. So in a soundproofed room with a hidden camera, Brittany talked to the police while her siblings waited outside. Immediately,
who hid the camera? The police hid
the police. They had a hidden camera.
Are they allowed
so
to
Brittany
do that?
didn't. Huh?
Are they allowed to do that?
I think they can just have a hidden camera in a room.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think they said, "Hey, Brittany, don't worry, there's no camera."
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they deny that there was a camera, but she just like wasn't like, "Here's a camera."
Yeah, and she volunteered to be there. Yeah.
She wanted to be there. So immediately she said, "Okay, I actually was in Jaina's car. I've been in Jaina's car." I lied about that initially. She said the attackers had made her move the car so it wouldn't be left in the illegal spot. This part is so like you dropped the ball. I'm going to read you a quote about what she said, which is from the book Murder in the Yoga Store by Peter Ross Range. Shout out. Here's what Brittany said. Okay, so the detectives were like, they kept their poker faces. They said, "The masked men made you drive Jaina's car? What? Where?" And Brittany said, "Prior to him sexually assaulting me and zip tying me, they made me move her car." And she had driven it to this specific parking lot, which was where the car had been found. Brittany said, "They said that if I passed anybody or opened my mouth or like said anything to anyone I drove past, I could consider myself dead. And one of them would be watching me the entire time. So they'd know if I did." She said, "I remember even seeing a cop and I was just too scared to even flag him down." Like, there are so many holes in this story.
So they let her go in the car by herself, she's saying?
So the police obviously weren't buying it. And they basically said, "Well, why would you go back to the store to be assaulted?" Yeah, she went by herself to move the car. And then it was before they assaulted her. So she moved the car, went back so they could assault her.
That's okay.
It literally doesn't make sense. So the police basically said, "Why would you go back to the store to be assaulted if you were already in the car and able to get away?" Like,
that makes
Brittany, that doesn't
sense.
fucking make sense.
Especially
here's what
like,
she said.
There's cases true where like I'm too scared to say anything or whatever, but not when you're literally by yourself driving.
And you have the car and they're not with you.
They're like, "Here's the keys. Come back so we can assault you though."
Yeah. And she's like, "Okay." So, yeah. But here's what her excuse was. And I believe she might have mentioned this somewhere before. She said that the men had seen her ID in her wallet. Like, they'd gone through her wallet. They'd seen her ID and they said, "We know your name. We know where you live. If like, we're going to find you and kill you if you like drive away right now," or whatever.
Drive to the police station.
So I actually have some footage of this interrogation, a little clip of it.
Yeah.
So let us load that up.
Prior to him sexually assaulting me and zip tying me, they made me move her car.
Okay.
I know where her car is. They said if I was to pass anyone and open my mouth, I can consider myself dead. I remember seeing a cop and I was just too scared to even flag him down, do anything.
Was that like when you left the store or when you were parked?
When I left the store.
So when you first left the store, okay.
And he was driving past in his car?
I think so.
Okay.
Nobody in the world is going to believe this story. No one. He doesn't believe it. My boss doesn't believe it. When I tell your brother and your sister, they ain't gonna believe it. And your mother and your father, they're gonna say, "Bullshit."
Can I go home?
In a little bit, but how did it start? Come on, let's get this over with. Come on, baby, let's get this over with. Nah,
She had a nice little like crying fit during these interviews, and the detective, you can just tell at a certain point he's so done with her bullshit.
Yeah. Well, and I love like You see that in so many interrogations because like sometimes
Yeah,
obviously it's like
they just
it's like
they've
fucking
had enough.
hilarious. Like, okay, you're just so annoying now. you know?
Yeah. And Brittany's tiny. Like in that video clip that you see her getting handcuffed and she's like, which is about to happen. And she's just this tiny little woman.
Yeah. Well, and
Like,
that's the thing. I'm sure that's probably one of the reasons that they didn't initially suspect her.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because she's like smaller than
Smaller than Jaina. Yeah.
yeah.
So at that point, the police had quite enough of her bullshit and they asked her to just tell them the truth. But Brittany wouldn't budge. She continued to lie and deny everything. And then finally, the detectives, like they tried all these tactics to get her to admit it. They were saying things like, Brittany, we know you must be going through a really hard time. Like you must have been really scared. I'm sure there was a reason why you did this. Like, let us help you. We'll get you counseling. Like they're trying to good cop her and she's just not budging. So then finally the detective said, okay, we're going to bring your brother and sister into the room. They came with you to this meeting. We're going to bring them into the room and we are going to we're going to tell them, or you're going to tell them what happened. So at that point, they read her Miranda rights, but they stay very casual about it and act like it's just a formality. They're like, hey, just so you know, you got the right to remain silent, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, they knew they had enough evidence against her. So they were just like, let's get this, finished up.
Yeah.
So Brittany's siblings, Chris and Melissa, entered the room and the police proceeded to go through all the flaws in her story one by one.
Her siblings.
So they're just going through every piece of like evidence that didn't line up with the forensics and whatever. Finally, they stated there's so many. And finally, they stated Brittany killed Jaina. Brittany didn't speak, but she vigorously shook her head and continued to deny it, continuing to deny it. Melissa, her sister, broke down and Chris asked for her to be taken out of the room, which one detective did and then came back in. Chris stayed in the room and he remained calm as he talked to the detectives. And he said, basically, Brittany's his sister. He loves her and he wants to protect her as much as he possibly can. He asked to speak to her alone. So the detectives left the room. Once they were alone, the hidden camera recorded their conversations. Ooh. So I have transcripts of the conversation. They had a 7-minute long conversation. I'm not going to read all of it, but I thought the transcript was interesting. So I wanted to read it. So Chris, should I ask you, did you? Brittany, I don't want to talk about it here. I just want to go home. Chris, I don't know if they're going to let you go. Just tell me right now. Did you do it? Because if you did, we have to get you a lawyer to defend you. And Brittany said, so Brittany, probably thinking there might be a camera, said, I just don't want to talk about it here. Chris said, listen, they're not going to let us go. Just nod your head if you did it, which I think is interesting. He said us, but maybe just like solidarity. Yeah. So just nod your head if you did it. Please tell me. Brittany looked down, but didn't nod. She said, I don't want everyone to be disappointed in me. Chris, no one's disappointed in you. We're your family. No matter what, we're going to be here for you.
I'd be disappointed.
Yeah, same. I'd be pretty fucking disappointed at this point. So Chris said, listen, what the police said was really fucking convincing. I just need you to tell me so I can at least try to get you out of here. Brittany, sorry. Chris, don't apologize. Brittany says something that's indistinct at that point. So we don't know what she said. Chris said, you're not going to, and then that was indistinct. You're not going to something. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. No response from Brittany. Chris, why? Brittany, I don't know how it happened. Chris, was it shoplifting? Were you trying to steal? Brittany, no. Chris, why did you fight this girl then? You can tell me. I can help you think. I can think on my feet and help deflect these detectives, but I need more information before I can do that. Brittany, are you sure they can't hear us, Chris? Chris, I've been looking around for listening devices. There's nothing in this room. Even if they did, it's nothing they can use in court.
Oof.
Chris,
that's not right.
Yeah. So just tell me what happened. You don't have to give me details. Just tell me what happened. Was the whole thing planned? Or Brittany wailing, no, not at all, Chris. Chris, so what did she do? Tell me what she did to get you to fight her. Brittany was crying. I really did forget my wallet. Chris, I believe that. Did she accuse you of shoplifting? Is that what it's all about? Yes. Brittany, I didn't take anything. Chris, okay, listen, here's
Still
what we're
lying
going to
about
do.
the pants. My God.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Chris is like saying what to do. And then like, he's like, we're going to get you a defense attorney, blah, blah, blah. Brittany remained silent during this, looking at the floor. Suddenly, she broke into a fast, sobbing, nearly unintelligible soliloquy. She said, Chris, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say, Chris. I don't know what to do. I honestly happened. Chris, I didn't know what to do. Chris, I know you didn't. Brittany, Chris, I've never been accused of anything. I've been doing so well. I have a job. Chris, she came in to let you in, right? Then what? What did she say? Brittany, she said she was going to make sure our manager knew or something. Chris, the manager knew what? That you were shoplifting? Brittany, but I wasn't. Chris, had you stolen from that store before? Brittany, never. Chris, honestly, I was doing good. I mean, as far as, which I believe she had not stolen from the store. So that might be actually true.
That they knew of.
That they knew it. Chris, I believe you. Okay. I'm going to try to keep my head. I'm going to try and be cool. I want you to be cool with me. Brittany, I'm worse than ever. Chris, stop. You're our family and we're trying to protect you. That's what's important, protecting you. I'm going to go talk to the cops and see what we can do. And then they have this little conversation where Chris is like, listen, you're shitty at lying. You need to lie better, basically. Stop looking to your left when you lie. It's pretty obvious. And then Brittany, are they allowed to record this? Chris, there's no recording devices in here. I was looking around the room the entire time. But there was a recording device. Yeah. So some people, there's some different speculations. I thought we could kind of like discuss this conversation.
Yeah.
So first of all, her brother knew about her history of shoplifting, which I
Yeah.
guess is probably not surprising.
And clearly knows she's a huge liar.
Yeah, but it sounded like he wanted to protect her. Like when he said,
Yeah.
I believe you, I don't know if he did or he didn't believe
For
her.
sure he didn't believe her.
Yeah.
And it's like he clearly knew. He's like, did she suspect you of shoplifting? Like, I doubt she told him about the shoplifting. So he knows
right.
that there's
It
a
was
pattern.
like that's what was happening.
He's like,
and
this is obviously what happened.
yeah. And like some people speculate on the internet that like he was just like trying to be nice to her so she'd confess.
It's possible.
Which I think is possible. Because he's saying like, you're my family. I want to support you no matter what. And I think that's like true to an extent, but maybe he also was kind of like, just admit it because you did it.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Well, like, it's like, it'd be interesting to know like what their history was or like, you know, hear from him later.
Yeah.
To know what
The family
both are
dynamic is
possible.
interesting.
Do you know it?
I don't know that much. Like, I just know they had all these siblings. They're all super close. The parents were always involved in the kids' lives. Like, they went to every sports game. They were respected in their community. Like, I don't know. I don't know the birth order, and I'd be curious to know that. But it sounds like Chris would have been an older brother. Like, that's kind of the vibe I get anyway. But
yeah, and I would buy that he'd want to protect her, and like I think
right.
it's, like I'd buy that like he didn't think that there was a listening device and like wanted to get her a lawyer or whatever.
For sure, yeah.
But he clearly knows like, okay, my sister's a big fat liar. She lies all the time. She's a problem with shoplifting. This is probably what happened, and like he pretty much gets it. Like he guesses what happened.
Yeah, easily. So,
and he knows, and that's the reason that the evidence that to me supports that he really genuinely was trying to help her is like, he's like, you got to stop looking to the left. You're like, if you're going to be lying, do it better. You wouldn't say that if you didn't actually want to help her.
I know. And I think the family does really want to support her. And that's where it's kind of weird to me. Like, it's like almost like kind of like an enabling vibe.
Yeah. But I think that I think most families, like, I think it's easy to think that like you wouldn't want to help your sibling or your parent in that situation. But I think for most people, like, it's your family and like that's where your loyalties lie. And you can be like really disgusted with someone's behavior and really off put and really like terrified of their behavior, but you still like want them to get the best situation that they can get out of it. Like, I'm sure after hearing that, he's like, she's not going to prison, but like, let's help her get like a 10-year sentence instead of a life sentence.
Exactly. You know? Let's hope she's a Carla, basically.
Well, I don't hope she's a Carla.
No, that's what the brother was.
Yeah, exactly.
So that afternoon, so I guess like the brother left, whatever. That afternoon at 1:54 p.m., exactly a week after Jaina died, Brittany was arrested for killing her.
Good.
So Brittany has now officially been arrested. She then waited in the Montgomery County Jail for 7 months for her trial. She spent that time.
Not like a crazy amount of time, is it?
Yeah, not that long.
Wait for your trial?
No, it's not that long. I think they were putting the case together.
Yeah.
So she spent her time getting counseling, attending self-help programs, and being very concerned about keeping her hair and nails done. Prosecutors were taping her phone calls, and apparently it was all about, oh, I got to get my hair done. I got to get my nails done.
How are you going to get your hair and nails done in prison?
In jail, I guess. Like, I don't know. All the priorities, though.
That's terrible. That shows zero remorse.
I know. So meanwhile, the prosecutors were putting their case together against Brittany. And so their goal was to have her charged with first-degree murder, but that meant they needed proof of both Brittany killing Jaina and proof that the killing was premeditated and not a crime of passion. They were also seeking the toughest possible sentence in Maryland, which is life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Yeah.
So that meant that they had to prove to the judge and the jury that Brittany's crime was so horrific that it put her beyond the possibility of any redemption or rehabilitation. That's from Murder in the Yoga Store.
Well, it seems like it was name a more brutal crime.
Yeah. And kind of interesting, I didn't write a ton of notes about this, but they weren't able to admit certain evidence into the trial. I don't believe they could admit the phone call between Jaina and Rachel, the manager, and Jaina and the other employee when she had asked if Brittany really bought the yoga pants from her, because I think it was considered hearsay or something like this.
Because they couldn't prove that she actually stole the pants?
I think so. So for whatever reason, that could not be admitted in court. They also couldn't admit that she was involved in prostitution. That wasn't allowed to be admitted. A lot of the stuff that's been talked about wasn't, the prosecutors weren't able to use that.
That I think would make sense because I don't see how that has anything to do with it. But
right.
Talking about how the phone calls, I don't know what I don't know what that would be about. That seems super relevant as to how and why she would lure her back into the store, because clearly she did lure her back into the store.
I know there was quite there was a few things that they weren't able to, for one reason or another, weren't able to admit, and so their biggest concern was being able to prove to the jury that there was an actual motive. So during the trial, Brittany was always perfectly groomed and well-dressed, keeping her face very neutral and looking either straight ahead or down. For the 6 days that the trial went on, she didn't really show any emotion. Brittany's family was present as her crime was broken down in detail by the prosecution. I believe they did also, and I believe they did also show Jaina's autopsy photos, which can't imagine seeing that. I mean, Jaina's family was there too, and friends. Yeah. So when Brittany's defense attorney spoke, his case was basically this. These were two women who had always gotten along, but that night there was a horrific fight, quote, "Things got out of hand and Jaina was killed by Brittany." But, he argued, she wasn't guilty of first-degree murder because she lost control in the heat of the moment, implying that his defense was going to be based on temporary insanity.
With 10 weapons? Give me a break.
And the whole court is you just admitted that she killed her.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, despite this defense, the prosecution was easily able to give a blow-by-blow account of Brittany's drawn-out attack on Jaina, her systematic creation of a fake crime scene and story, and her continued lies, especially about moving Jaina's car.
Yeah, that's the biggest one.
I mean, it was pretty easy. One of the jurors later said, Brittany had to have cognition when she decided to puncture the victim's brainstem. On the jury, there was no real deliberation. We were all convinced. So within minutes of their deliberation, all 12 members of the jury voted that Brittany Norwood was guilty of first-degree murder, to cheers from Jaina's family and friends who were present.
Wow, that's the fastest jury conviction I've ever heard of.
Yeah, super fast. This one other source said within an hour, but this book, which I'm taking as a very legitimate source, said within minutes.
Yeah, the shortest I've ever heard is like 45 minutes.
Yeah. This one, I mean, I'm sure all you have to do is show the autopsy photo of Jaina, and it's like, get the woman who did this away from me forever, because that's the worst thing I've ever seen. So
sorry, they all agreed to first degree?
First degree.
Good.
So this was at her trial. Then, and that was November 2012. November 2011, 7 months after the murder. And then 3 months after she was convicted, her sentencing hearing was held in January of 2012. So everyone was giving speeches of what they thought the sentence should be. The Murrays made a statement, and Brittany's family made a statement. And then Brittany herself decided to speak, which she didn't have to, but she decided to.
It's always so cringy when they talk.
Yeah. She addressed the Murrays, saying that she was deeply sorry. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Brittany. That makes it all better. To her family, she said that she couldn't have asked for a better one, which, okay. And then she asked the judge to leave her with some hope, basically like the chance for parole. But the judge decided that due to the barbaric nature of her crime, she had no chance of ever being rehabilitated, and she should spend the rest of her life in prison without the possibility of parole. Yeah. Interestingly, the judge also made a statement against the Apple Store employees and basically said, you guys are fuck ups. You should have done something.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he shamed them, as he should. Are you kidding me?
Just something brutal is going on over there. I don't feel like dealing with that.
Walk
that's
away.
Crazy. That is not how you participate in society.
Yeah, exactly. So Brittany was convicted, and then that was in 2012. Then in 2014, 2015, Brittany filed for an appeal, since in Maryland, there's an automatic right to request a new trial. Mm-hmm. But she was denied. The Court of the Special Appeals affirmed her conviction of first-degree murder, and this most likely brought her case to a close. As far as we know, this has brought her case to a close. Okay. She is in jail. At the time, another of Brittany's brothers, Hugh, made a statement indicating that her family will continue to support her. It was 2015. And that was that latest update I can find about Brittany. So she's currently in jail at the Maryland Correctional Institute for Women. And to this day, she has not spoken more about her violent murder of Jaina. And even if she did, it probably would be a lie.
But she has admitted to it. It sounds like
yeah. The defense attorney was like, yeah, she did it. She lost control.
And she said sorry.
Yeah. And some other employees, because a lot of employees were present at the trial, some of them were in agreement that she lost control, and it was kind of like a mental break, because it just seemed so shocking. But because she kind of systematically went around torturing Jaina, it was kind of like
10. You can't get through 10 weapons and
in a frenzy. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way.
You're carrying it out at that point. And so, Brittany's sitting in jail, and meanwhile, experts and non-experts such as ourselves all continue to try to understand why she did it. So, why did Brittany really kill Jaina, an innocent woman, and why did she do it so violently?
Yeah.
So,
please tell me why.
Okay, there's 4 main opinions or theories I found based on my internet research. And by that, I mostly mean the true crime subreddit. Shout out. So 4 kind of main perspectives. Number 1, some people kind of have no idea why, in the sense that the violence of the crime is so excessive and didn't really seem like there was a significant reason for it. So some people kind of go by the she snapped, she lost control theory.
Yeah.
2, some people believe there was a buildup over time. She saying that she had frustration at the lack of attention during childhood, potentially lack of accountability over time. She was probably acting out, engaging in little little crimes to get attention, wasn't getting it.
And she
Some
was
people
getting
say-
away with all of her bad behavior. Too.
Right. And some people say maybe the family was religious and strict. Maybe she was like deeply ashamed because she kept getting caught, but she kept continuing to have this compulsive need to lie and steal over time. Maybe her boyfriend's rejection had triggered a lot of anger in her. Maybe being caught and fired once and not wanting to be fired again. She was holding on to a lot of stress and finally snapped. So that's something that some people think.
Okay.
The third thing, some people think that there's a racial and socioeconomic dynamic that plays a role in this case.
Okay.
So, like I mentioned before, Brittany's a Black woman and Jaina was a white woman, and the location that in the Lululemon was like a predominantly white area. Let me read a theory on this from a user from Reddit who has since deleted their account, but the post is still there.
Interesting.
I just think it's interesting. I don't know. Like, I wanted to explore all the avenues of this case, so I will read this theory. So here's what the user said. At first, I thought this case sounded utterly insane. A murder over a pair of yoga pants. But after listening to someone's podcast on it and getting more background, I can now understand how this unfolded to some extent. Being an outsider and coming from a lower income background of less opportunity, Brittany Norwood probably felt some conflict and judgment from her coworkers. I'm sure that being paid a minimum wage and working in a hostile environment in a culture that promotes wellness and spirituality, Brittany probably felt a sense of retaliation towards her coworkers and the company, a rebelliousness towards the corporate greed and discrimination, and that's what led to her stealing the pants. Also, at these kinds of retail stores, you're expected to look the part, and I'm sure Brittany, because she didn't have the funds for it, would start to like feel like she couldn't keep up, and maybe people would start to comment or be snide about it. So until Brittany was caught by her privileged, by the book coworker, with whom she had probably experienced previous social tension and a lack of compassion and understanding for her background and situation, these past frustrations, a sense of humiliation at being discovered, and a desperation to keep her job bubbles over into violence. The excessive number of wounds to corroborate the story of multiple assailants, as well as the manifestations of her frustrations to her mistreatment at the hands of her coworkers, prejudice from retail customers in the white upper class shopping center and the company itself. It is far more than just a pair of yoga pants. But of course, this is all speculation and none of it excuses what she did. So that's what one person was speculating. People were very against this on Reddit. People were like, oh, you think that if like Jaina was nicer to Brittany, then she wouldn't have killed her? Like, people didn't really take too well to that story. But so here's my piece on it. Okay. I think that when talking about racial dynamics, obviously neither of us can speak from the perspective of a Black woman in America, and we're not going to attempt to. Yeah. But all we can say from an outsider's perspective, or all I can say, is that we know racism and oppression of Black people is a part of Western and American culture in a lot of ways, and it's undeniable. So does race and socioeconomic status play a role in this case? I don't know, but I think it's a topic worth mentioning, because like from the experience of somebody who experiences racism just as a part of like an ingrained part of the country they live in, it's possible it could affect, of course it could affect your psyche, you know?
Yeah, it's like possible that it could affect like you, like her as a person, and like, you know,
just
why
overall
this happened to be, but like just even some of that theory just doesn't make sense, because like if you're talking about like if she's like she you know, she made that many stab wounds in order to make it look like
right. I mean, that's like, just one person's explanation, but
we know that the fatal blow came at the end. So
right.
like it's not like you have to be finished with that and be like, oh shit, look what I did. Yeah. And then like that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. Well, this one person's theory is like there's holes in that specific theory. Other people have speculated that racial dynamics play a role in this case, but I just wanted to read kind of one one specific post on it. But
I buy that it affected
maybe,
like
I don't know.
It affected like who she became and like affected like her as a person, and maybe like was a part of like why she became a violent murderer kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, like
Um,
racism, it's so traumatizing, and a lot of people can internalize a lot of anger, obviously, from trauma, whatever that trauma is.
but also like this pattern of behavior existed of like her lying and stealing
Right.
for so long that I don't think like those are more clues as to like how
Right.
this ended up.
I don't know that anybody says that this was purely a racially motivated crime. I think that people
Yeah.
say it could have played a dynamic that is not really discussed in the media, because kind of the media portrayal is Jaina found a pair of yoga pants that Brittany stole, and to cover it up, Brittany killed Jaina.
Yeah.
That's
And
kind
so
of the
then,
official line on the case.
and so then if you're adding that on top of that, then it's like whatever. But I just don't buy that as a foundation.
Right. I think it's just one layer to the case that people consider.
Like,
Because
there is
basically,
something wrong with this woman.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
There is something psychologically unwell with this woman.
Yeah.
That is far beyond like she got mad over yoga pants. There's
Right.
like clearly
For sure. Yeah. I don't think it was. Yeah. So let me tell you the last theory number 4 that I read.
Okay.
So some people believe that the confrontation and attack was never about shoplifting at all, but that Jaina discovered that Brittany was involved in prostitution, and that's what incited Brittany to kill Jaina.
Ah.
So here's what somebody on Reddit had to say. Shout out Mandy HVZ. They said, there has been speculation and rumor all along that the murder didn't really happen just because Jaina caught Brittany shoplifting, but because she knew about Brittany's other job and Brittany was afraid that she was telling other people or would. Although this was not brought up in court, because like I said, that wasn't admissible in court. What is known is that Brittany had an ad on Craigslist offering personal services, and that was found by police during their investigation.
Okay.
So this theory has like some merit in the Reddit community, because if you'll recall, Brittany had a fare card from a prostitution counseling group,
Right.
and that's what she wanted to go back to the store to get.
Yeah.
So the implication is that maybe Jaina found the card and was maybe going to expose Brittany, or she knew about it from some other way. Like, I don't know, maybe she opened up her wallet and saw prostitution counseling group fare card and was like, what's this? I mean, and then Brittany was like, fuck you, I'm going to kill you. I don't know. Or maybe they kind of knew, like maybe they heard rumors that Brittany was prostituting herself, and that's, I don't know exactly how it would have come to a head, but that is something that people consider. And the reason that people on Reddit and conspiracy people talk about it is because it wasn't talked about in court. So it's not really, like, I think I did see an article about it, but overall in what's talked about in this case, it's not like a big deal in the case. Generally, it's not talked about that often. So that's another potential theory, is that it really wasn't about the yoga pants. It was about Jaina potentially exposing Brittany's prostitution, which I think probably similarly to her being fired from Lululemon, it would ruin her like reputation or her chances of getting a job at Equinox that she wanted as a personal trainer or what have you.
Okay.
So,
Want to hear my theory? Because I have
sure.
one. Okay. I find, and like with my very limited knowledge of like who she is as a person, first of all, I'd really be curious as to like what her like maturity level is. How old was she again? She was 28. Okay. So for example, I've been really going through the Casey Anthony case recently. A podcast that I really like has been going through it.
Yeah, I've been listening. I listened to it a bit.
Also Jodi Arias. Those two, like, they really remind me of her. And both of them had like this real immaturity to them, where, and like Casey was like 20 years old, like she was super young, so like kind of made more sense.
How old was Jodi? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Pretty young, but I think
she was 20s for sure.
In her 20s. And I can buy that, especially for somebody who's just like constantly lying about everything. Like they lie to keep up a facade of something. And to like,
lying is like a coping mechanism for some people.
Yeah. And to keep their life on like, or to keep the illusion that their life is like on track or whatever.
Right.
Fair enough. But like somebody like Casey, like she had all these chances of like, if she wanted to just like leave her kid with her parents, they would have gladly been like, okay, this is our child. Now she could have gotten out of being a mom anytime she wanted. And then, you know, again, like the Casey Anthony case has technically not really been solved, but like my theory on her is that like she just didn't want to be a mother anymore, and she killed her child because she's so immature. Like it's like very much like Carla Homolka, like just pure selfishness. And like you can't see past your own like small selfish desires or whatever. And this girl sounds like she like finally was caught red-handed stealing these pants and could not fathom having to deal with the consequences of her actions. And she's like, fuck, like what? I just have to fucking kill this girl. And it sounds like it got out of hand. Maybe she kept hitting her and she just wouldn't die. And she didn't know how, and she's like, fuck, okay, this isn't working. This isn't working. What do I do? But like now I've gone this far, I have to kill her. And I can buy that some people are so immature and so selfish that a little thing, like when they really see their life veering off track in a way that they can truly picture, like my life is going to be ruined because of this, and they cannot think of the consequences of their actions, and they just think this person has to be eliminated because this person is standing in the way of what could be a reasonable life for myself.
It's definitely possible. I agree. I think she was definitely like, I don't know if it's like the right word that I'm thinking is selfish. It's like she didn't have a sense of accountability. She didn't show up to court all those times. She didn't listen to the restraining order. She consistently stole from other people. Like she didn't have a sense of like
it's to me it sounds
like internally of not wanting to do anything wrong, but also like not being held accountable for her actions. And I think for her, like I think she had lived a double life for so long, and there's so much like probably internal shame and resentment and frustration in that, like always being like internally like, I'm not good enough, I need to lie. And for whatever reason, was it that she didn't get enough attention as a kid? Was it that she felt that she didn't have the same chances as other people with more privilege? Whatever, like if there was a logical reason or not, or if it was just purely like, I've been living this double life for so long. And I like, you have to, when you lie like compulsively, you hate yourself. You have low self-esteem. You want to invent another reality that's not what it is. And I think she, I don't know what
create another ego, like an alter ego for yourself.
Yes. Like I think because she was lived in denial for so long, she split a part of herself from being present in the moment, and she can like go into that fantasy. Like she doesn't have accountability in her life, so she doesn't know how to deal with a problem.
But that's what I mean by selfishness. I mean selfishness like in the way that a child is selfish. Like you can't even conceive of the fact that like the world doesn't revolve around you.
I think that's exactly it, because she didn't have to ever face consequences necessarily for actions in the past, or like she did, but it was swept under the rug, and her family still always supported her. And I think that there was probably like an inciting factor, whether that like straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. Like I think she was a ticking time bomb, but people just didn't know. But whether it was that
it never got to that.
Yeah, whether it was that like Jaina confronted her in a way that triggered her, whether it was about the pants, about the potential prostitution, either or. And I think she had this just build up where she was like, it's like not consciously, but I think she was like, now it's being taken out on you. And I think it is fair potentially to say that Jaina represented things that she internally hated, whether it was like someone more privileged than her, or whether it was just somebody who was like this truly bubbly, outgoing person that Brittany pretended to be, but she really wasn't.
Yeah.
Maybe like I think Jaina was a target for her in a sense. Yeah. Sure. So I think that's kind of what happened in the sense, like, I think she was holding on to anger for a long time, and it was building up. And like you said, she didn't have a sense of like empathy for other people and all that stuff. Whether it was from something in her childhood or whether it was simply something innate within her. But I do think there was that buildup and there was that anger over time. And maybe, like we mentioned before, maybe it was just internalized, or maybe it was being expressed in areas that we don't know about. Obviously, we at least know she was somewhat violent with her ex, but I think once she got going, I think she was like, like, I don't know if you've ever felt like really, really stressed and then you like punch a pillow and you feel better or something like this. Like, I think she started, huh?
I throw things a lot.
Yeah. Like it feels good to like
Release.
destroy something. Yes. So I think she probably got going and she felt like a release from it.
Oh,
like
God,
it probably
so
was.
Sick, though. It's so sick to think about somebody like releasing their anger on like physically
on an innocent, like crying, screaming for help. And she's begging her to stop and screaming for help. And I think like Brittany, like maybe it did make her feel a bit more powerful, because I feel like Brittany's kind of like a child screaming for attention in a lot of ways, and she never like got to achieve like self-worth in a sense. And like I think for her, she was like getting gratification from it to an extent. And because the thing is, if she wasn't, she could have been like, okay, you're incapacitated. I already hit you in the back of the head. You're already pretty fucked up. Let me just do something that's going to kill you, like cut your throat.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
She never did that. She didn't
have to keep going for 16, possibly 16 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ooh, Jesus Christ. But at the end of the day, I still think she deserves her sentence, and she is 100% to society.
Yeah. Like, I think she should be. I think she would deserve a death penalty, for sure. Like, I think she deserves whatever the worst sentence is. She deserves it. If it's life in prison with no parole, fine. Like, that is such a. It is an unforgivable crime, and it's something that it's like, okay, maybe if like Jaina like killed a member of your family or something, and then you went after Jaina's retaliation. But even then, like nothing could ever justify what she did. And the fact that even what was presented in court was like the shoplifting motive, it just makes her seem completely deranged.
And then on top of it, like when she's in prison for 7 months, like caring about her hair and nails, like get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. She does seem to me like somebody, I don't think she necessarily has a split personality, but I think that she has that kind of like,
it's like she lies so much she's able to believe the lies.
Yes, like she can genuinely live in a place of denial. Like she's probably like, fuck, I need to pay my rent, but I can just deny it and then I don't have to, and I don't show up in court and it's fine. That's and like I can just not show. Yeah, exactly. Like I think there's probably some pattern of lack of accountability in her life. Maybe not. I kind of believe that a lot of behavior is through socialization. I think that like, yes, genetics play a role, but also socialization plays a role.
Yeah.
And I think for like Brittany, I mean, I really want to know where she is in the birth order. Because if she's like the last kid, then for sure, like her parents are human beings. How are they going to pay attention to the 9th kid? You know what I mean?
For sure. And because of like knowing all this, I have to imagine that she got away with like that she was maybe like a pretty manipulative child and like a little liar of a child and like always got away with it. And it's like,
but it's also like we have so many kids to pay attention to, so it's Brittany, we believe you, and not look into it too much.
Little kids lie. They just lie because they like discover what lying is, and they're like they lie.
I mean, they're kids, right?
And it's like totally fine. It's a normal thing for kids to do, but it's up to parents to be like, that's not true, and like just like gently, socialize them. But maybe if you don't do that and you allow them to do that and like continue to manipulate, then like
and like for the kids, like the other thing too is like when I remember reading somewhere where when she went to college and she was becoming known as this thief in the college soccer team, I think it was her mother or somebody in her family had said, well, like the devil got into her there. So I think there's a little bit of a lack of accountability in that sense there, where it's like anything bad is just the devil. And I this is a blanket statement. Like I don't know the nature necessarily of her religious upbringing, but it was the religious aspect was mentioned quite a bit. And she, attended like a religious school and that kind of stuff. So I just feel like part of her is like screaming for help internally, but she also doesn't know how to get it. And then maybe she's also internalized that she doesn't like who she is isn't good enough, and she has to lie to get attention, or she has to steal to make herself feel better. Like I think stealing, there's like something psychologically with stealing where like you feel like you don't deserve to have it through legitimate means kind of thing.
Yeah. And they also like,
and if she's the 9th kid or late in the birth order, then maybe she only got hand-me-downs, because it's like unless her parents are loaded, how can they afford that like new things for every kid? Like, there could be something there.
Yeah, there could be a lot of things. It's just like it's really
It's
hard
all
to know.
speculation for sure. Like we don't know. And she's not one of those killers who's like, oh, let me make this all about me. Let me write books in jail. Let me give interviews. Like she's not like that. Yeah, exactly. She's not. I don't think she
didn't
wants
do it for
recognition for what she
notoriety, you know?
did. Yeah. Yeah. Like I think she was genuinely a very angry person. And also maybe her being small too. Like maybe she felt like, I think that's something psychologically. I know for a lot of men, like men who are shorter, like that affects them psychologically. Maybe for her too, being this like petite woman, maybe that played a role in her like feeling like kind of like weak and powerless. I don't know.
I think one thing that we can say with like some degree of certainty is like she got herself into a situation where she felt threatened and she felt she had to get rid of that threat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I do think she probably felt threatened, but I don't think that I almost don't think that her motive was being like I don't even think that was really her motivation. I think she was like triggered in the sense that like I fucking like hit one dead end after another in life where I keep fucking up and like I just like can't handle it anymore, because she was on the cusp of potentially getting this new job and starting this legitimate career. So maybe she was like, it's all about to crumble down upon me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put all the blame on you, Jaina, even though everyone fucking knows she's stealing. She knows she's stealing, but she can't take accountability. So she's going to blame it on like Jaina is kind of like what Brittany, in a sense, portrayed herself as. Like she's this kind of like successful, athletic woman.
Yeah,
she's,
like on her way to achieving her master's and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so fucked up.
Yeah.
It's really hard to understand. It's not one of those cases where not that it makes sense, but we talked about Catherine Knight, for example, and she just went through one horrific trauma after the other, violence, rape, all this throughout childhood. And it's kind of like, of course she fucking turned out how she did. I mean,
Yeah.
But with Brittany, it isn't that obvious, and she hasn't spoken much. So it's still not obvious. And she's a compulsive liar. So even if she does speak,
yeah, we're
not going to believe it. So
no, you'd have to get like evidence from like her family and stuff.
Right. But even them, like they are motivated to protect her. So maybe they wouldn't be honest. And it's just really hard to know. But like the facts that we know are just horrible, like really, really shocking. So yeah, that is the case of the Lululemon murder. So it is,
You never rated it at the beginning.
Oh, I mean, I don't know how to rate this one.
It's hard to rate things.
Yeah. Like I kind of think I'm like everything's either like a 1 or a 10 in my mind. I feel like it's up there. It's up there for me because it's kind of like
I'm going to write down what my rating is. And then after you say yours, I'll show
okay.
you. Hold on. Don't say anything yet. Okay.
Like for me, the I don't know if the right word is randomness, but just the suddenness and the unprovokedness of it is really scary. The fact that it was so drawn out, so aggressively brutal.
The level of violence
is genuinely like probably the worst we've heard, right? Like that is just in like, I mean, some people like keep and torture people for months. So you could obviously debate, or years or whatever. Like you could obviously debate, but the level of violence and the fact that she made herself a victim of it too,
the lack
is
of
just
remorse,
so twisted. Yeah. And the fact that she really committed, I mean, it was only a week. The investigation was only a week, but committing to being like, what happened to Jaina? So I feel like, I mean, 8 out of 10. What do you think? You said, wait, why can't I see the screen?
I said a 6. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know why I couldn't see the screen. Well, yeah, it would have been better. I thought it was going to be the same as me. Yeah, 6. I mean, yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. The thing that makes it not as bad, like, is that she was like, not that it makes it not as bad, but the fact that she was brought to justice
There's
helps.
that, and like I don't buy that. Like, I don't get a sense that she was like that she like enjoyed it.
I don't think she. I think she was. I think it was gratifying for her. I think it was.
Maybe it was like a gratifying experience for her, but I don't buy that she's like a sadistic serial killer like Israel Keys, that it was like,
Right.
I like murdering. Like, I think that it was a situational thing where it was like, for some other reason she decided to kill someone rather than like, I like killing and torturing people. That's where I think it's like, you're scary. This girl is scary because it's like, Jesus Christ, is like really unhinged of you.
It's so scary.
Like, it doesn't like like, I was not going to keep me up at night.
Right. Yeah, like I there's a lot of
which maybe says more about me.
Yeah, you're pretty desensitized, I think. But there's a lot of cases where violent criminals end up going free, and that's way
terrifying.
Scary, of course. Yeah. Like if Brittany got off and she was integrated back into society, like I would be very scared.
I would not want to live in the Washington D.C. area. That's where it was, right? No, it was Maryland. It's near DC.
Yeah, that's near Washington. Yeah.
So
Madison says 6. I say 8. I mean, this was pretty shocking for me. I would definitely suggest calling your mother and telling her you love her, or cuddling a dog or something.
Or if you know somebody who you's like, got some tendencies, like, keep an eye, try to see if they're
don't turn your back. Don't let them see the back of your head.
Try to hold people accountable to their actions in a reasonable manner.
You're saying
you know what I mean? Like if you're her brother, like, could no one step in? Like, I don't know. Like, I wonder if anybody.
I don't know if they had the like authority over her to do so. Like,
but I mean, like, I just mean, like, check in on people. Like, try to figure out why they lie to you constantly. Why do you steal so much? Inquire.
If you know somebody who's a compulsive liar and thief, keep.
And I don't want. I'm sure some people are compulsive liars and they're like, not murderers. So
for sure,
not saying like assume everybody who's got mental health problems has, but see what's up.
It's really interesting. Like in a fucked up way.
I just think like there's somebody could have gotten involved in like a maybe caring way, and this could have been avoided.
Yeah, I don't know, but that would have been.
And goddamn, if you hear a violent attack happening beyond the wall, fucking
just call
the
fucking police. Yeah,
Jesus Christ,
come on. Yeah, that's
not a hard thing to do.
That's one of the most shocking elements of this case. I mean, it's not, but like that is a shocking element of this case.
It's horrifying.
Yeah. But yeah, so
scenario is like you interrupted a fight and the police wasted their time. Big deal.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining us. We very much appreciate you listening, especially if you made it this far.
Yeah. Hit us up with like any other theories that anyone has.
Yeah. Let us know. I would be interested to hear, because I feel like we don't necessarily have anything conclusive on it. Maybe we never will, but if anyone does have theories, we would love to hear them. So you can reach us with that on YouTube. You just search Who's Knocking, will show up. You can reach us on Instagram at Who's Knocking Podcast. We are on Twitter at Who's Knocking Pod. We have an email, which is hello@whosknockingpodcast.com.
And please subscribe to our YouTube if you so feel inclined. We just hit 100 subscribers. So, we're out here.
That's a number.
Leave us a review or whatever on any platforms. That would be
leave us a rating.
Really nice.
Share with a friend if you have a friend who likes talking about murders.
Everybody has a friend who likes talking about murders.
Yeah. And for us, it's us, but I'm sure somebody. And yeah, that's all for now. So make sure you guys stay safe out there, because you never know
who's knocking.
Bye.
This podcast is produced in collaboration with Lost Line Media. Artwork by August Digital. Music by Matthew Cook.